Let's move to the Portland Trailblazers, who initially I didn't think we were going to talk about much, but after some further review, we both have a best bet, but it's a disagreement. We have a best bet. I have a best bet at 38.5 to the over. Brandon has a best bet. Are you going to play the 38.5 or the 40.5 minus 130 at points bet? Do you want the extra two for the extra 20 cents?
So I'm taking the under here, but I want to talk through it before I make a decision on the
Okay.
number, and even if it's a best bet, because this is our first one. I think this is Division 4 for us. I think this is the first time we've disagreed, but this is the first time that we have a strong bet play on opposite sides. So this is my third best bet in the division. I want to talk through it and then make a decision about this once I hear your argument for, because I don't love this one, but I want to see if you can sway me still.
Okay. What's your projection on that number?
Okay, so I have the Blazers. We know what they are. We know they'll be good on offense, bad on defense. We know this. This is what Portland is. I have Portland ninth on offense, 25th on defense. And I'm going to guess that the difference between us is that you probably have each one of those 4 to 6 spots higher. So we'll talk about it. At ninth and 25th, that puts the Blazers 32 to 40 wins. And that's why I have to take the under here, because that's basically almost the entire range. Yeah, the teams that the Blazers compare to, when I looked at, okay, if you're at ninth offense, 25th defense, I get teams like the Pelicans from a couple of years ago. I get from the year before that, I get teams like the Wolves or the Hornets. Basically, when you look at it, we don't remember those teams very much, which is telling because they're not memorable. No. They're teams that typically won like low to mid 30s. When I did the similarity score for this, I was like, whoa, okay, that is not what I expected from what this roster could be. I think we think the Blazers are running it back. It's a really different looking team, actually. A lot has changed. So I want to talk through with you what got better, what's gone, and what's the result here.
Okay, this doesn't have a lot to do with this team. It's a historical trend, and I don't like a lot of these because there's been change like this. Like I like trends when there's stable factors. I will just say that when you have Damian Lillard, they're 6-2 and one to the over in the Dame era. Like when you have Damian Lillard, you tend to go over. That's just a general trend.
Is that counting last year?
No, because they didn't have Dame, so I'm basically ignoring it. Okay. My biggest reason for this is actually a numbers play based off of the Pythagorean thing that we talked about with the Nuggets. The Blazers were the highest overperformer. They won way more games than they should have. You can argue that number is very much juiced, amped, faked, whatever, because they were just tanking their faces off so aggressively lately.
Tanking so hard.
But that also, I think, impacts a little bit of how the market views them. And so teams that are 1.6 or better, which the Blazers are way over that, 75th percentile, are 15-8 to the over, 65% in the last 10 years. They just tend to go over. The market overreacts on these things, and they tend to put the number too low because it's like, look at the point differential. This team sucks. The changes are pretty significant here. So Dame gets back, but you also add Jeremy Grant. Dame never played with Josh Hart. They add Gary Payton II. And Anthony Simons takes a big step forward in the rotation. So when we look at this, you have Damian Lillard and Yusuf Nurkic, who have been on teams that have consistently gone over and made the playoffs. Then you add Jeremy Grant as a wing upgrade. Is that better than Norman Powell? No, it's not. Anthony Simons versus CJ McCollum is an interesting question based off of, I think, a lot of factors of CJ's durability, the scouting report on CJ, all types of things. Like CJ's a better player right now. Simons put up some pretty ridiculous numbers when the games didn't matter. Does that factor? I don't know. Josh Hart and Gary Payton are big swings here for me because you mentioned the defense.
Yeah.
Look, I cannot stress this enough how much I am frustrated with their decision to retain Yusuf Nurkic. If they had gotten literally any other center and this number was this, I would be hammering the over. This is a best bet for me, but I'm not. This is like going to be a 1.5, 2 unit play versus a 3 or 4 or a 5 unit play. I'm playing like the lower end of a best bet for me. I'm going to play it. And the reason is Yusuf Nurkic. It's not that Nurkic sucks. It's that with Yusuf Nurkic, when they've tried to play at the level and pick and roll, he gets torched. Can't switch, can't play at the level. You drop him, he's better. If you play drop with Damian Lillard and he has to get over the screen, he sucks. If he plays at the level or on switches, he's pretty good. You have a center and a guard who cannot play the same scheme defensively. You can make that work, as I've talked about with the Bulls, with adding these perimeter guys like Gary Payton and Josh Hart to help from the corners on those drives to give a little bit of help. And if Billups does that, maybe that gets them not 25th, maybe that gets them 19th, maybe that gets them 21st. And that every mark you get higher on defense, I think impacts your win total a lot more, considering the bar is so high for the offense. Billups last year, I actually thought did a very good job.
Really?
There's a lot of things that went against him. When I watch night to night, the Blazers do not strike me as a team that doesn't know what it's doing. They strike me as a team that the formula was stale. Dame was hurt with the abdomen thing. They needed to make changes. The front office was toxic. They changed all that out. Everyone raves about Cronin. Everyone raves about Joe Cronin. Like, the vibe with the Blazers is much better. I'm not telling you to bet the over based off of vibe. I'm telling you to bet the over based off of the things that were so negative last year were accented by very specific things that have been swapped out this year. I don't think this is a great team. I think it's a 500 team at 38.5. I like the best bet for the over.
Okay, that's compelling. It's interesting because you like the best bet, but it's one of your lower end best bets, and I like it also, but we're all on the opposite side of things. Like, you don't really want to go too hard on it because of Nurkic. I don't really want to go too hard on the under because of Dame, and we're kind of seeing the opposite. So let me make the case for the under here. So last year's data basically is a throw for me. So if you look at the teams before, the previous 3 years in a row, we have a very, very consistent profile of what the Blazers are. For 3 consecutive years, the Blazers were a top 3 offense in the NBA. All 3 years, they were a top 3 offense. I did not realize they were that good that consistently. However, all 3 years, they were bottom 3 in defense. All 3 of them. Really bad. Like, when I say 25th defensively, that's giving them credit. That's improvement from what they have been. So what I want to look at is, okay, we know very securely what those teams were. Throw out last year, look back to the team where, okay, what's the team? Dame and Nurkic always there. Undersized shooting guard next to Dame, musical chair forwards, and not much bench. Right? We went through multiple versions of the team, but that's what the Blazers were. So if I compare that, what I knew what they were, to what they are now, I have Dame still, but it has to be at best an even version of Dame. Maybe he's still in there. He's only 32. His last healthy season was fantastic. But at best, I'm getting the same Dame I got before. More likely, at age 32, I start to get some decline. Nurkic has to be worse now than he was before. The decline is already happening. So those are 2 spots where I'm at best even, probably worse. To me, from CJ to Simons is a clear drop. Maybe not long term. We'll see about trajectory. But right now, that's a drop. And we already know Simon's not a good defender. So we're going to have that same problem built in. I like the idea of Hart and Gary Payton. You only get to play one of them because Jeremy Grant's going to start. If I knew that Simons with his hefty contract would come off the bench, I would feel a lot better about the idea of the team. You think he will? There's
an expectation from the people I've talked to that there's a good chance he comes off the bench.
Because here's the thing. If he doesn't, here's the bench unit.
Yeah,
this is my bench 5. Gary Payton, Keon Johnson, Nasir Little, Justice Winslow, and Drew Eubanks, with maybe some Shaedon Sharpe, who I don't think plays much this year because he's probably going to be in the G League a lot. So if you switch it up a little bit, put Gary Payton as the shooting guard. So now you have 2 very good defenders with him and Hart. Now you bring Simons off the bench to be just just go do everything, go do all the scoring. I like it much better that way. So if you're thinking that happens, I feel better about the floor of this team. But if I'm just looking at the big picture of, okay, we knew what the team was, but now I have an even or worse Dame, an even or worse Nurkic, a worse 2 guard. And then the other thing too is Terry Stotts was really good. Terry Stotts was a good coach for sure. I don't know if Billups is bad, But again, I have at best an even probably worse coach. So I look at the thing we knew what it was, and it all seems equal and probably worse. So I feel like we're headed in the wrong direction here.
But it seems worse compared to 2 years ago, right?
Worse compared to the template of what this team has done year after year.
But that's the thing, though, is in 2021, when they weren't good, they still won 42 games. In 2020, when they weren't good, they went 35 and 39. Okay, they took a dip then. The year before, 53 wins. The year before, 49. The year before, 41. Those are all overs. So, like, here's the thing: I think Stotts was a better coach. I think Stotts was really good, but a lot of the defensive stuff was Stotts. And honestly, David Vanderpool, who's a disciple of drop. They'll play a little bit different coverage when they have different personnel out there. I don't know. Like, I don't think you can solve the Dame Nurkic problem. I don't think you can. That's why, again, I return to Nurkic as the problem. I will say Nurk's 28, so I'm not in a place of saying he's going to start falling apart yet. Like,
is he really 28?
He was born in 94.
Wow. Okay.
So
that's news to me.
Yeah, he seems like he's been in the league forever, but he hasn't. He was a rookie the year before Jokic came in. It's his 8th year in the league, but he's only 28. The bench is a lot of unknown guys with some upside. So the question is kind of like, can you get a couple of hits there? Even if the bench is bad, can it get pieced together with staggering? There are lineups here, I think, that can get some stops. I don't think it's gonna be good. Again, though, I'm not trying to make an argument for the Blazers a top 15 defense. I'm trying to make an argument for them to not be bottom 5.
Yeah,
that basically gets us home.
That's all they need. If you just told me they're not bottom 5, I want no part of the under anymore, because the offense can be good enough.
I'll just tell you from a league perspective, there's a lot of watch the hell out for Dame this year. Not from Blazers folks, although they are definitely people that are close to Dame are definitely promoting that as well. There's a lot of talk of, we all knew that Dame had this abdomen thing for years. He had an abdomen problem for years, and he never got it fixed because he was trying to play through it. Guards are playing much longer now. Yep. His style of play is not like Russell Westbrook's, where it takes lots of hits off of you.
He's very durable. Usually he normally plays all the minutes and all the games. Here's the numbers from his last season throughout last year. Here's the numbers: 28.8 points a game on 62% true shooting, 6.3 BPM, 125 offensive rating. Like that's, I have the case for the over. That's the case for the over. Please don't bet against this man. It's going to go poorly for you.
And that's a lot of it. So fully healthy, great season from Dame. That raises the floor. Jeremy Grant provides a pretty good weapon. I think it mostly comes down to, they're not as explosive, but they're more solid. They're not as just completely shaky. I think that they'll look, relative to like the 2 years ago, they'll look better in their bad games and worse in their good. And that gets me to around a 500 team still. So that at 38.5, it's got to be a best bet over for me. At 41.5, I would absolutely be on the under. Like, that's just where I would be, is at 41.5. At 40.5, it's a stay away. 38.5, I still like the over.
Yeah. So I think here's where I'm going to land. I'm looking, I see a 38.5, a 39, a 40.5. And instinctively, I'm like, maybe let me grab that 40.5 and give myself an extra little bit of cushion here, especially to that Simon's possibly coming off the bench thing and making these rotations work a lot better. That matters a lot for me. That might be a couple of wins there potentially. If I find myself thinking, I'm not so sure, let me grab the highest number here and give some cushion, that is the signal that this should not be a best bet for me. So I'm going to stay on the under, absolutely, but I'm going to do a lean under here because I was kind of teetering between that. And I think that where I'm at on this tells me to maybe not go too hard on it.